One night, a group of teenagers decided to spend the night in the house for a dare. They thought it would be fun to see if the rumors were true. The teenagers arrived at the house late at night. They were all excited and nervous. They had brought flashlights and a few other supplies, but they didn't really know what to expect. They went inside the house and started exploring. The rooms were dusty and cobwebbed. The furniture was old and covered in dust. The teenagers made their way up to the attic, where they found a few old boxes filled with clothes and toys. As they were looking through the boxes, they heard a noise. It sounded like someone was crying. They looked at each other, their eyes wide with fear.
Did you hear that?
One of them asked.
Yeah. It sounded like it was coming from downstairs.
They all stood there for a moment, listening. The crying sound stopped.
Maybe it was just the wind. Or maybe it was a ghost.
They all laughed nervously. They didn't really believe in ghosts, but they couldn't help but feel a little scared. They decided to keep exploring. They went downstairs and found a room that was full of old books. They started looking through the books, and they found one that was about the history of the house. The book said that the house had been built in the 1800s. It had been owned by a wealthy family, but the family had died in a fire. The house had been abandoned ever since. The teenagers read the book with interest. They learned that the family had been very unhappy. The father had been a cruel man, and he had abused his wife and children. The mother had been a kind and gentle woman, but she had died in the fire. The teenagers were starting to feel a little uneasy. They knew that they should leave the house, but they were also curious. They decided to go up to the attic again. They wanted to see if they could find any more clues. As they were going up the stairs, they heard the crying sound again. It was louder this time, and it seemed to be coming from the attic. The teenagers stopped and looked at each other. They were all scared, but they were also curious. They slowly made their way up to the attic. They held their flashlights up and looked around. The attic was dark and dusty. There were cobwebs everywhere. The teenagers saw a figure sitting in the corner of the attic. It was a young girl. She was crying. The teenagers were stunned. They couldn't believe that they were actually seeing a ghost. The girl looked up at the teenagers. She was crying so hard that she couldn't speak. The teenagers didn't know what to do. They had never seen a ghost before. One of the teenagers took a step towards the girl.
Are you okay?
The girl shook her head. She continued to cry. The teenager reached out to the girl. He wanted to help her. As soon as he touched the girl, she disappeared. They didn't know what to say. They were all scared and confused. They slowly made their way back downstairs. They wanted to leave the house, but they were too scared to go outside. They didn't know what else to do. They sat down in the living room and tried to calm down. They talked about what they had seen. They tried to make sense of it all. They didn't know what to believe. They didn't know if they had really seen a ghost, or if it was just their imagination. But one thing was for sure, they would never forget the night they spent in the haunted house.